You are a snail. Specifically, you are a Hawaiian tree snail, which sounds like a vacation until you realize it is the opposite. Your name is George. Well, the humans call you George. You don't know that. You don't know anything, really. You're a snail. But we'll get to that. Right now, you're clinging to the underside of a leaf in a rainforest on Oahu, eating microscopic fungi like it's fine dining. Your shell is a perfect golden brown spiral, smaller than a marble, polished by years of slow movement through wet leaves. In Hawaiian, your kind are called kahuli, the voice of the forest, because when thousands of you used to live here, the sound of your tiny shells clicking against branches was the background music of the entire island. That was 300 years ago. Now the clicking is gone. The forest is silent, and you are the last one making any noise at all. You were born in a lab. This is already a bad sign. Most animals born in labs are either about to cure something or about to go extinct, and you are not curing anything. Your parents were the last two known members of your species. Your mother laid a clutch of eggs on a damp paper towel in a terrarium at the University of Hawaii. One of those eggs was you. The others didn't hatch. So right from the start, you were winning a lottery nobody wanted to win. You spent your first few months the size of a grain of rice, crawling across sterilized leaves in a plastic box, while graduate students wrote notes about your every movement. You had no idea that you were famous. You were just trying to find the wet part of the leaf. At around 6 months old, you were moved to a larger terrarium. They gave you a real tree branch, fresh leaves, a misting system that simulated Hawaiian rainfall. It was the Ritz-Carlton of snail housing. You didn't care. You're a snail. What you didn't know was that outside your glass walls, your entire species had already vanished from the wild. The story goes like this. Once upon a time, there were hundreds of species of tree snails across the Hawaiian Islands. Hundreds. Each valley had its own color pattern, its own shell shape, its own local accent of clicking. They evolved in isolation for millions of years, filling every branch and leaf with slow-moving spirals of gold, green, chestnut, and amber. There were snails with shells shaped like turbans, snails with shells shaped like bullets, snails with shells so thin they were translucent in sunlight. And then humans arrived. Not with guns, with gardens. They brought plants. The plants brought pests. The pests brought panic. And the panic brought the rosy wolf snail. The rosy wolf snail was supposed to eat the pests. That was the plan. Instead, it looked at the pests, looked at the native Hawaiian snails, and made a very easy choice. Your relatives are slow, soft, and stationary. From a predatory snail's perspective, this is not a hunt. This is a buffet that does not move. The rosy wolf snail ate its way through the Hawaiian forests like a very small, very slow apocalypse. It climbed trees, it raided leaves, it followed mucus trails straight to hiding snails, and drilled holes in their shells while they slept. Entire species disappeared in a single decade. By the time scientists realized what was happening, it was already over for most of them. Your species, Achatinella apex fulva, used to live in the Ko'olau Mountains. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. By the 1990s, there were 10 left in the wild. By the early 2000s, there was 1, and then there was 0. The last wild individual was collected in 1997 and brought into a captive breeding program. It died without producing any offspring. Your species was officially extinct in the wild, except for you. You were born from frozen sperm. Seriously. A researcher named David had collected sperm from your father years earlier and stored it in liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius. Your mother was the last female alive. They thawed out the sperm, introduced it to her eggs, and hoped. You were the only survivor. So now you are it. The entire future of your species, in a shell the size of a thumbnail, crawling across a branch in a climate-controlled room in Honolulu. No pressure. Every day is the same. The lights come on at 6 in the morning. The misting system sprays for 15 seconds. You wake up is snails can be said to wake up, and you begin your slow patrol of the terrarium. You climb, you eat, you secrete. You climb some more. You inspect the same leaf you inspected yesterday. It has not changed. You inspect it again. Still the same leaf. At around noon, you attach yourself to the underside of a branch and enter a state that is not quite sleep and not quite thought. Scientists call it estivation. You call it Tuesday. In the afternoon, the lights dim slightly and you resume your patrol. The humans check on you twice a day. They count your antennae. They photograph your shell. They make sure the humidity stays at exactly 85%. You do not acknowledge them. You are busy being the last of your kind. Here is what it means to be an endling. An endling is the last known individual of a species. There is a word for this, because it happens often enough to need one. You are not the first endling. You will not be the last. But you are, by definition, the loneliest animal on Earth at any given moment. You have no mates. You have no rivals. You have no predators, because the rosy wolf snail is not allowed in your terrarium. You have nothing except a glass wall, a misting system, and the crushing weight of several million years of evolutionary history resting on your 2.5-centimeter body. For 14 years, scientists searched every tree in Hawaii for another member of your species. 14 years. They hiked into remote valleys. They searched at night with headlamps, because snails are more active in the dark. They checked every native tree. They checked every non-native tree. They checked rocks, leaves, fences, and the sides of buildings. Nothing. Every expedition came back empty. Every trail went cold. Every possible mate was a hope that turned into a footnote. The problem is that you look almost exactly like several other species of Hawaiian tree snail. Your shell is a golden spiral with a dark band near the opening. So is your cousin's. So is your second cousin's. Telling you apart requires a microscope and a lot of patience. Scientists spent years arguing about whether some of the snails they found were actually your species or just lookalikes. They were just lookalikes. By 2018, the breeding program had given up. There was no one left to breed with. You were a species of one, and then on January 1st, 2019, you died. You were 14 years old. That is a normal lifespan for a tree snail. You died of natural causes, which is a polite way of saying you got old and stopped moving. The graduate student who found you reported that you were curled inside your shell on your favorite branch, motionless, and your antennae were retracted. That was it. No drama. No final speech. Just a tiny animal that had outlived every other member of its species by 14 years, finally succumbing to the one thing that catches up to all of us. Your body was preserved in ethanol. Your shell was added to the museum collection. Your DNA was sequenced and stored in a freezer. The terrarium was cleaned out and given to another endangered snail species. And just like that, a Chatonella apex fulva was gone. The voice of the forest fell silent. Here's the part that really stings. Your extinction was not dramatic. You were not killed by a meteor or a volcanic eruption or a sudden ice age. You were killed by another snail that humans brought over on a boat, because humans wanted pretty gardens. The rosy wolf snail is still out there, by the way. It's doing fine. It has eaten its way through dozens of native species and shows no signs of stopping. This is what ecologists call an extinction cascade. One small mistake leads to another. A garden snail escapes. A predator snail follows. A dozen native species vanish. The forest gets quieter. Nobody notices until somebody counts. You were noticed because you were beautiful. Your shell was a perfect golden spiral with a chestnut band, and humans like beautiful things. There were probably uglier snails that went extinct in Hawaii without a single newspaper article. But you had a good shell and a good PR team, so you got a headline. National Geographic wrote about you. The New York Times wrote about you. For 2 weeks in January 2019, you were the most famous snail on Earth. You did not care. You were already dead. The forest you came from is still there. The trees are still wet. The leaves are still green. The mist still rolls through the valleys every morning. But the clicking is gone. If you walk through the Ka'olau Mountains today, you will not hear kahuli. You will hear birds, insects, wind, rain, but you will not hear the sound of 1,000 tiny shells tapping against bark as they climb toward the light. That sound died with you. Scientists are trying to bring you back. They have your DNA. They have your shell. They are experimenting with gene editing and stem cells and all the other futuristic words that mean humans are trying to fix a mistake they made 300 years ago. Maybe they will succeed. Maybe someday there will be a George II crawling across a branch in a lab, unaware that he is a clone of the last of his kind, resurrected by the same species that let him die. Maybe that is beautiful. Maybe that is just sad. You were a snail. You did not know you were the end of a line that stretched back millions of years. You did not know the graduate students wept when you died. You did not know that your extinction was tweeted about by people who had never seen a Hawaiian tree snail and never would. You knew one leaf, one branch, one slow climb toward the wet part of the glass, and for 14 years, that was enough. The forest keeps happening, with or without you. The mist still falls, the leaves still rot, the fungi still grow, and somewhere in a freezer in Honolulu, your DNA waits, not for the next snail, for the next chance to not be alone.